Hey everyone. Just a few kind of technical difficulties. Like I was trying to go live on my computer and it didn't want me to. So I'm now live on my phone. Um, and, I don't know whether that's working or not. So I'm going to check with Charlotte. Oh, it looks like someone's watching. So, Charlotte's going to do some kind of follow-up of questions on here because we might have a few people listening. I can see, I've got Robyn watching. That's pretty cool. So we've got a couple of people coming in. I've never done this live thing before, so I don't really know what's going to happen as we go through this process. And, I'm sitting in my room chatting to myself as we're doing this. So I've got a few more people coming online. And, I wanted to have this session because I wanted to be able to spend some time talking about how do we take care of ourselves through this process. And, the anxiety of doing a live call was a little bit stressful because I thought I could do it on my computer and it's on my phone. So thanks, guys, for starting to watch this. And really, I'm up for grabs. If people have got some questions, put them in the chat box because I would love, send them via Facebook. And Charlotte is going to keep an eye on them, and I'm going to try and manage that as we go. So some of the things I think as we go through this period is I wanted to have those live Zoom conversations during the week and then kind of do a bit of a summary on this live chat about what that might be like. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that have come up in the calls during the week, and I'm going to kind of just have a bit of a chat with you and just know it's a bit shaky because it's on my phone, not the computer. Thanks, Jacob. Having a good laugh there. I'd love people to throw stuff in so I can keep an eye on it. But, some of the things that came up for people through this week was that they were actually having to change their practice of delivery. So for a long time, we've been doing one-on-one supports. We've been doing supports for people in group settings and running groups, and all of a sudden we can't do that. And so there's places for me about thinking, well, what do we do instead? And we've been having conversations that lots of services are now starting to look at putting peer support online, which is awesome. And that works for people who have access to computers, which is great. And some services are starting to call people, which is also cool. And that will work for those who have access to phones. And so there's some stuff around that people were talking about in the work groups about feeling a little panicky about how do they do that when they can't see people. And I guess it's one of those things when we think about those things around peer support and those kind of communication skills, we want to be able to have conversations in the same kind of way that we still want to use those skills of being passionately curious with the people that we're supporting. So, and checking in that what we're saying, what we're hearing is really what the person's saying. So there's pieces around there for me about using those same kind of skill sets that we use in ordinary peer support, but it's the place that we just can't see people the same. So it's a bit like this, I can't hear you guys, I can't see you guys, and I'm hoping that you'll kind of put some questions in the kind of Facebook post as we go so I can answer some of those. But there's places that I'm really keen for us to think about how we utilize hearing people's voices to be able to be in conversations with people and still use those I'm passionately curious and checking in. Hey, here's what I think you said. Is that what you said? And it's going to be those same skills whether we're online or whether we're in person. So it's that. And I don't know, sometimes people have said to me, that sounds really simple. And I guess I think peer support is simple. I think it is about, we have the ability right now to be the people kind of around the world that like actually support people in different ways. I think one of the things that I see is that we've got through, and yes, I see a comment from Jen that Zoom, Skype can be a tool to use for one-on-one as well. We can also do groups that way. So I don't know if many of you have used Zoom, but you can use Zoom to run a group. You can put people into Zoom rooms to break people up into smaller groups, which is a great way to do it. And I think one of the things for me that I've been saying to quite a few people is that right now, this is actually our time. It's our time to be heard as a group of people that can support in a way that sometimes people can't. Because what I'm noticing, and I'm talking to people kind of across the world, what I'm noticing is that there are many people who maybe have dealt with some adversity, but haven't, don't have a diagnosed mental health issue, haven't utilised services and stuff. And they're being impacted in different ways. There's some people who've never had things really go wrong in their life, never had that anxiety piece happening. So I think one of the things that we have the ability to share as peer workers now is with people who haven't really had that experience before, because we've gone through those kind of places. We've used resiliency skills that maybe other people haven't used. I was talking to a peer worker the other day who was saying like, not really sure what the future holds, scarcity to food, not sure about having money. I've got this. And I thought, we're in this unique position to share community-wide, not just with the people that we've been supporting for a while. And I just want to take this bit to say hi to a couple of people. There's a few people from Oklahoma I see on there. There's a few people from Canada. I actually see my nephew, so now I'm a little nervous because, I have to step up. The family have never seen me do this kind of stuff. And, a couple of other people asking how I am. Well, I can share my stuff, right? There's some stuff sitting here, and I think maybe we all have it at times that, like, we don't know what the future holds. And I had a peer worker the other day saying that, she was talking to people and just telling them it's all going to be okay. And I said, one of the things that we might think about is not saying it's going to be okay because we don't actually know, like, is it going to be okay? What it looks like the other side. So I was talking about, even for ourselves, thinking about how do we as a community talk together about we can get through this as a community, but we don't know what the other side of this kind of pandemic looks like. So it's how do we kind of think about our own self-care through this process. So I'm going to share a little bit about me because peer support's about sharing and being a little vulnerable, I feel. And so one of the things that I'm doing at the moment is taking the dog out for a walk each day and actually taking her to a dog park where I can get away. And like social and physical distancing is huge there because it's a massive park and I don't have to be around other people much. And I had stopped doing that because I was so busy thinking about that I had to work. And I got into that about 10 years ago when I moved to North America, and I forgot. I was the worst part. I was talking to people about, hey, we need to look at self-care when I was teaching peer workers, and I wasn't doing it for myself. And so I'm starting to look at, how do I do that for myself now? Hey guys, hey Victoria, hey Jody, hey Marianne, good to see you guys popping on. Please feel free to ask questions or make comments, because I think that's what I really want to hear. I don't just want to ramble on for the next hour. I want to hear some stuff from people too. But so, I've been taking the dog out, which I had stopped doing. I'd take her out, for a quick walk, but now I'm going out for an hour every day, and I'm making a conscious effort. And in reality, business for Charlotte and I has hotted up in this time because there's a lot more anxiety around. I don't know if some of you have taken a look on Instagram, but I've decided that one of the things I want to do is make silly videos every day. Something frivolous, something fun, because that's self-care for me, right? It's doing those things because I feel I want to do things for others, but I also the things that I do for others, I want to support me too. So many of us in peer support sometimes want to be the helpers, and we're always giving, and it is that place. Thanks, Jen. It is that, I think that's how you pronounce your name. I'm sorry. Again, not sure. Self-care and the balance of that. And it is one of those things, right? We can kill ourselves watching the news 24/7. And I think one of the things I've done is I've limited myself. There's certain times of the day that I will take a look. So I'll take a look after I first get up, after I've taken my dog for her first kind of quick outside. I give myself a 15-minute, I can take a check of what's happening. I take a couple of checks in the day, and it's interesting. One of these things that's also happened through this process, which I don't know if other people are experiencing, but I'd love to hear their thoughts on it too, is I've got closer to some members of my family. So I moved, obviously, for those who don't know me, I'm Australian, and I've moved around a bit. So I've lived in New Zealand, I've lived in the US, I live in Canada now, and, I kind of stopped talking to some of my brothers very much. And through this process, one of the most amazing gifts, and I'm going to look for gifts in this, one of the most amazing gifts is one of my brothers and I are talking for 40 minutes every day at the same time. If I haven't called him, I get this kind of thing about, hello, are we going to talk today? And so I'm getting to hear more about what's happening with him and his family, and Australia, and what's happening there with this pandemic. So I think for some people, there's connections coming back, and whether it's family or whether it's friends, I think sometimes when we've been disconnected, we're reconnecting with some people again. And I see Joni saying, not for her, she's distancing, and now she's got an excuse. And I think we can use that too, right? I think it's about working out what it is and what it looks like for you. So if there is people in your life that, forgive me, but are pains in the asses, we do get to go, whoa, we can't see you. We're social distancing, we're in quarantine, or whatever it is. And for other people, we can get back to having different connections. And certainly one of the things my brother said to me, which I hadn't thought about, was, hey, we don't know where you live. Well, we know you live in Winnipeg, but we don't have an address. We don't know what you want done if something happens to you. And it was oh, I probably should do that. That is a little bit of self-care, taking care of some of that business too, right? And so there's some beauties in things like that. But I also think one of the gifts for me as we work our way through this situation, I don't know about you guys, but for a long time, my thing, and talking to some of the peer workers this last week in those Zoom calls that we've got going, is the ability to support those people who have been in long-term situations, who are kind of coming to the day services every day because it's the place they come and it's where they catch up. And we have this great ability now to support people to think differently. And I think personally we did a disservice as a community by not supporting people to try and move out of some of those environments, because right now those people are struggling more than ever, and it's how do we kind of support them. So we have an ability as we move through the next few months to kind of look at that as well. Services may get to change forever, and we may get to be the service that kind of steps up in this process, that people get actually has an amazing place in the field. And I would really like to hear from some people as we go through this about what they're doing to take care of themselves. So I just saw a comment, and sorry, it was from Newfoundland, I missed who it was from, but that they're speaking to people they haven't spoken to in months. And so there's this thing about social distancing and not being connected, but I think many people are talking about the bigger connections they're making. I see that comment there about your dad who's got lung conditions. He insists on going to work. And there's a place that I think as we go through this, just as there's a place as peer workers that we know at times we're going to lose some of the people to suicide that we work with, no matter what we do. I think we are going to be in a place where we're going to lose people in our lives through this. And it's about what do we do as that happens. I also know, my oldest brother, he has a third of his lung removed and he almost died from pneumonia last year. And if he gets this, there's no ifs, buts, he's going to die. And so as we've had conversations about that together as family, and I think we're going to know people who are impacted. I know I got a message from a very young peer support worker the other day, 26, I think, 5-year-old son, no family, not a lot of friends, very immune compromised, and she's got this. And she was talking about how scared she was and what she was going to do through this process and what was going to happen to her young child. And it hit home that that's going to happen. And as this increases, because none of us are anywhere near the peak yet, we're going to be impacted. So it's what do you do to support yourself? How do we do that as people? I would love you guys to tell me what you're doing to support yourself at the moment, because I've talked a little bit about mine, and I see Jennifer's comment about, we're doing social distancing, but it's bringing us closer by text, by FaceTime, by Zoom. It is this ironic place that we all got so busy, and now all of a sudden we have to step down. And I see Christina's talked about, a peer as a nurse and working and being concerned for them. We're absolutely going to have that happening. There's so many people that we know, and there is a concern because, talking to a friend, there isn't enough protective equipment at the moment, and they're using it over and over again. And we can do the best we can, and we can use our peer skills to be there to listen for people. But I want us to make sure we do it for ourselves. I just saw Mary Ann talked about we're going to see, relapses as people, aren't in the same environment in terms of being able to go to meetings and stuff. One of the things I've been hearing from the addiction community, Marianne, is people have been putting a lot of meetings online on Zoom, because Zoom's also stepping up, and they had a freebie we could be on for so long, and they're stepping up and taking some of those restrictions away so that people can be on for a bit longer. And so there's those things, and yes, we're still going to have people that struggle through this. I know, I've been eating more chocolate than I normally do, so I'm getting a little chubbier, a little stressed about that, but that's why I'm stepping up the gym as well. Jennifer, I see you talked about playing basketball in the driveway and chalk in the dance parties in the house. Speaking of dance parties, actually talked to some friends about putting a Zoom virtual party together where we can all be in our own houses, we can all have whatever it is that we drink, whether it's water or orange juice or something else, and be able to have parties that way. We're going to be at Robyn Priest Live Your Truth. We're going to be starting some virtual parties online for peer workers. We're going to be throwing up some challenges about lip sync challenges for peer workers and putting those things online. I heard someone last night did a trivia night online. Someone else I know was doing one of those paint evenings, where you got your kits and everyone had some kind of drink, whatever that was, and did their painting online. I see Christina's talking about listening to online concerts. I know there's some Canadian and US bands who are putting music on or doing music lessons. There's people doing free yoga classes online. I love the virtual happy hour happening with friends. Marianne, you just quit smoking. At the best and the worst time for it, for sure. It's one of those things. And we are, Charlotte's putting up some comments in the chat box for us too. Chat box. You tell I've been doing Zoom for a while, about offering free online peer support for peer supporters. So, people can check into those too. But I'm just wondering if Victoria's still online and whether she wants to step in and talk about anything she's done in terms of, I don't know, I'm putting her on the spot, and that's not a very good peer support piece, eh? But I think the piece is, I just want to look at how we as a community can stay connected to each other. And I know that people are doing that in their workplaces. And I think we have an opportunity now. I've always wanted to encourage people from across the countries, different countries across the world, to get together as peer supporters and talk about, how do we move forward? How do we support ourselves? What do we do in terms of that process? And so I'm excited to think this is one way we can start breaking down some of those barriers now, to support each other and start sharing what's happening in different places. So, I'd really like to hear your comments. I've seen we've got Tennessee online. I know we've got Pennsylvania online, or we're online, New Hampshire, Oregon, Oklahoma. We've got people from Canada online. I'd love you guys to kind of put something in a chat about what's happening in your local communities in terms of peer support. I know that in Oregon, they've done an advertisement with peer support phone numbers and said, if you want peer support, here's the numbers to call. I'd love for you guys to throw something up to kind of talk about what you've been doing in your areas. Anyone? Come on. You can do it. I know you can. We don't have huge numbers, but maybe if we keep doing this, we'll get more. Been rough in Newfoundland because it's like really starting to kind of happen in there. And I mean, one of the things to think about Newfoundland is that, they were hit like 2 months ago with what was called Snowmageddon. So, people were trapped in their houses for, because the snow had, closed in if people were in basements and some doors, and staff were working 36 hours. And I know Jennifer and Joni are doing peer support over there for healthcare staff, and that's really kind of ramping up and going into place tomorrow. And that was a little bit earlier than those guys were expecting. So it's hoping that the online peer support and these kind of sessions where people can kind of get together and throw stuff around will support you guys as you go through that. Because I think there's the general, when we talk about peer support, often people think about it's just putting peer support into a mental health or addiction service. But we've also got peer support happening in the workplace. In terms of the Eastern Health guys have got 13,000 health employees, and they've got peer support happening. And I think that was a great step forward, right? Because now more than ever, I think peer support's going to ramp up in the healthcare sector. And then we've also got, we had someone the other day who's a 911 operator on the call. And it's those things, that worker, that she's a peer worker as well. And she was talking about, the number of calls they're getting from panicked people, and it's ramped up for them. So how are they getting support with each other? I saw Robyn just put something up about the police doing toilet paper drops for elderly people. One of those things, getting toilet paper in, is a useful thing. And it's just become crazy. That's what's happened in terms of that across the world. We can use other things like wash a t-shirt or something. I don't know. I'm a bit gross. I see Marianne talked about at their agencies doing a big kind of Zoom call for peer workers. I saw Brendan put up a link for there. Jen, the idea of the green and red squares in the window, I'm not familiar with that, and I'm trying to look at your comment to see if you've got more in there. All good is green and red needs help. We've got just kind of, I'm trying to catch up with some of the comments on here. Is worrying for family is a big thing coming up for people that maybe haven't dealt with some of the peer stuff before. Haven't dealt with significant mental health stuff, but getting worried about, and I'm trying to read your comment, Heather, sorry. So I really appreciate people starting to kind of chat about what are their fears through this, because one of the things is you're online with peer supporters, and we're talking about how do we support ourselves, but part of supporting ourselves is supporting our community too. Well, for me, part of my self-care is supporting my community. So I know that Charlotte sometimes is like, why are you doing that? Why are you offering so much and doing this? Because that's one of those things about my self-care is supporting others too. And I see Heather talked about living in the country. So the red and green thing probably doesn't work on her door, and it's how do we, maybe it's that phone call thing, but that doesn't help if things are happening and you can't get to the phone. I see Ben Priest, he's a good fella, he's my nephew, talking about stores being open an hour earlier for elderly and people with disabilities, and I know there's many places in the US and Canada starting to do that as well. And so it is those things. And I think when I think about support for me too, I think about looking at the beauty of how people are coming together to support each other. Those things about the red and the green, and the on people's doors, the checking in on people who they know are alone, to see if they're okay, whether it's by phone or I know some people are knocking on doors and just talking through doors to see if people are okay, or people dropping off food for others. And I think one of the things when I think about my self-care is being able to see the beauty of that we've got a catchphrase that we're going to start using for our business, and the catchphrase is get your human back on. And I think that's what I'm seeing, is people getting their human back on. People have been so caught up in what's been happening in their own lives and dealing with work and the pressures of it, and like the speed of being able to do everything. Like you've got to be online and you've got to be answering and you've got to pick up and you can't take time off because we're busy. I think the universe has said, well, we're actually going to take some time off now. And I think there'll be a place where, and I get people are working from home, but I think there'll be a place where when we come back to not the same, because I think it's going to be different as we come through, but I think the connections might be a little different for people, and the work-life balance might be a little different too. I see Marianne talked about stores closing early to restock and opening early for the elderly. I see talking about local people are offering delivery of fresh produce and supplies and stuff. And I think one of the things that I've enjoyed seeing is, like, when I've gone out to get groceries or to the pharmacy, like being able to say to the staff, how's it going? And actually really wanting to hear. And I think one of the things I continue to talk about in peer training or any training is how are we passionately curious about other people that we see in our lives, whether it's peer support or whether it's just people in our life. How do we actually be passionately curious with them to see what's happening for them? But I also want us to think about, how do we do those same things for ourselves? Are we asking ourselves like how we are? Are we checking in to Charlotte and I talk about calling out a spidey sense. How are we checking in that we're doing okay? And if we're having a tough time, do we reach out? So I reached out just before this call to Charlotte and said, I'm having a little bit of anxiety because I've never done Facebook Live and I can't hear you guys and interact. And I'm like, do I really have anything to say? And I don't know. I think I just like hearing my own voice and connecting with people online and, just offering a place where we can start to engage like this. So, Heather, I see you were saying your sister lost her job. And I think the reality is there's so many people losing their jobs at the moment. I think government's going to have to step up and look at how they support people. And that loss of job stuff, we don't know how long that's going to go. We've just started, we're going to put some stuff online for employers about how to stay connected to their staff if they've just let their staff go because of this. Because at some point we're going to want to come back to restaurants opening and stuff. And so how do employers start to connect differently? And I think that anxiety, and I'm just making an assumption that people losing their job adds some anxiety, but it is that place of allowing, it's that peer way, right? Allowing people to feel what they feel, validate their feelings, be with them on the conversation, and, being passionately curious and exploring in a way that has people start to think about when we get through this, what it might look like. Not that everything's going to be okay or the same, but what does it look like as we go through there? And I see Marianne talking about the earth having time to heal. Totally. Blue skies. I know I travel a lot for work. Well, I was. And it is that, you look down and you see the sky and it's ugly, and now we're seeing things change. and Venice like clearing up and things like that. I think we're going to see a little bit of a healing, and I don't think we're going to ramp up in the same way that we were. People have talked to me about planes. Well, it'll be cool. We'll be back up in the air soon. I don't think we'll be doing the same level for a while. And I can see Ben making a comment about interacting with people all across the world. Totally. We're all in this together, and it's how do we support each other through. And Heather, I see your point about how's she going to manage. And I think one of the things that I keep talking to people about is I can see governments stepping up, and some are stepping up faster than others in terms of financially supporting their communities. The one thing I hold on to through this around that is that the entire world is having the same issue in terms of people losing their jobs. So in Canada, they put some figures up yesterday and said last year, same time, 27,000 people had applied for employment insurance. Right, so the unemployment kind of benefit. Yesterday, it was 500,000 people. So I think given the numbers, it is for me, governments will respond quicker and some will respond slower. But I think it's the entire world that's having this issue. And so I look to France. France has made a decision while they've got people in isolation, they're paying everyone's bills. I know in Canada they have talked about not having to pay mortgages. I know in Australia they've done something similar about no penalties, no defaults. I think there's been discussions around that. I think governments are going to have to look at some point, how they support people to get food if kind of their bills are being paid, and trying to pay bills and do that. So I think because it's such a massive problem, and the numbers, if I think in the US, I can't even fathom the numbers of people that'll be out of work that have been living on the poverty line. It is working out creative ways to get through. And I think one of the things is some peer workers have been homeless, have struggled for food and stuff like that. And I think that's a place where we can actually share our experiences with people about different tools and mechanisms for getting through. It is. Robyn's talking about community garden projects, and Heather, I see you throw up again that, and maybe I think that's in response to Marianne's comment about the world healing in ways of blue skies, and the clearing up of water. And it is that catch-22, isn't it? There's a part of me going, this is actually an amazing kind of way of... It's a way of slowing the world down so we can get healthy things back, healthy life balances, healthy environments, the earth getting healthy. And so, I can't say how long the quarantine's going to last. And I know that many states in the US are going into it. I know that states in Australia are going into it, have closed their borders to other states. I know Canada's talking about things like that. And I think for me, it's not going to turn around quickly. If we look to Italy, which, struggled to control it at the start, and we don't know if we've done any better over here. But their people are in quarantine for a bit longer, and they don't know what that looks like. And I think, I truly believe with you, Heather, that I think we will work our way through this situation as communities, and I don't think it's just country by country. I think we actually get to learn from each other in different ways now. And so it is one of those places like where we will work to create something for the future. Do I know what that looks like? No. Do I think we have the ability to, as weirdly as it sounds, and do our social distancing, physical distancing piece and actually become more connected as communities? Like, even if I think in families like have to slow down and be with each other. And I know that's causing some kind of stuff at the moment too, that like families are in small confines together. If they're in a small house, they're having to deal with each other. And I think we're going back to places in the past where people have engaged with each other differently. And I've seen so many more families when I've gone to the dog park, on the way to the dog park, out walking together as families than I've seen since I've lived here, so almost 18 months. And it's beautiful to see. And there's a frustration that I had to get to this point for that to occur. So I just see Charlotte put, what does social distance look like for you, as a question for people. And I also think we've done a disservice as a community calling it social distance, because I think what we're talking about is physical distance. We want physical space between us, but we want to actually engage more socially than we probably ever have before. And that meme that's running around Facebook, that's like, you know, all you introverts, check on your extrovert friends. I think it's really true, right? We're all having to look differently about what it looks like in our life and how we engage with people and how we keep doing our job or not doing our job. And so there's places for me about, it's not about social distancing, because I truly believe I am more connected than I've ever been to certain people. But the physical distance is different. So, and they've had to start making that distinction, because some people weren't getting that it was about physical distance. And there's still, you know, people kind of not snuggling up, in workplaces, like really close and doing stuff. And we're like, actually, it's physical distance that we want. And what we want to do is create social connection in different ways. And that, you know, we're lucky we have kind of an internet, and I'm hoping it copes with like the volume that it's going to have to cope with as more and more people end up at home. And I remember Charlotte's daughter the other day, Charlotte's internet wasn't working, and her daughter was like, what am I going to do if I can't use the internet? And I went, you're going to do what we did as kids. So, you know, the older generation, like me, really old, who came through without internet growing up, we have an ability to support young people in terms of, hey, we can actually like do things that don't involve the internet and don't involve computer games and stuff. Brendan, I see you talked about walking your dogs and car rides and doing those, not being able to see your partner due to distance. Totally. And some of that is really is tough and impacting people. So there's lots of people that have long distance relationships that now are like, I don't know when I'm going to see you again. Personally, I started kind of chatting with people in different places, and they're like, this is cool, but we don't know if we're ever going to catch up. And we will, we just don't know when. So, and I see Marianne talking about all of those mad survivor skills don't seem so weird now. So maybe we can just go back and watch a few episodes of Survivor and go, what were they doing? How were they getting through that? Yeah, and it is kind of those things. And I there's less running around for no reason, for sure. So I think gas prices are dropping at the time then people aren't using their car as much. And Heather, I see you talking about, having a compromised immune system and self-quarantine. And I'm just trying to see what the extra comment you had on here was. It's not letting me hit and see more, but on there. And I'm there with you, right? I got called by my cardiologist the other day about not coming to an appointment coming up. I wasn't even thinking that I was an issue, right? I was like, it's those lung people. And my cardiologist actually told me that I was a high risk. And I went, oh. And for a minute, like I may have had a few drinks on one, like that night. And then the next day I woke up and I went, well, actually for me, it's not any different than my normal life because because of the way my heart works, I don't know, I might be walking down the street and it might stop. And so I went, I'm going to do what's responsible to like do that physical distance and take care of myself, and I have to keep going with my life. I love that, Heather. Step away from the matrix and think about life. Yeah, because nobody's taken away the beauty of outside. And as Robyn said, kids are getting to know their parents for the first time, which is good and not so good. And very true. And we've also got to be cognizant, like, is there a way that we can support people that are now stuck at home in situations that aren't great? And are there, I've worked out some code words with some friends of mine. They're in relationships that aren't so good, to be able to like use a code word. And I think it's a bit like Jen's red and green on your window kind of process, but to be able to have those kind of conversations like on a call. And so, I know we're coming close to 4 o'clock my time. I have no idea if I would love to hear from you guys. I would love to have you put something on our Facebook feed or hit me up on Instagram. Same thing, the Robyn Priest. Just letting us know, like, is this a useful kind of time to have with people? Is it is it good just to have these kind of conversations and toss the discussion around about what's happening in different places? And so here's what I'd like to do. We've got a few minutes left and we've only got a small number, and I don't care whether there's one person or there's 5,000 on these calls. Like, I'm still going to offer them and like be there with this. And I'm just looking at the motto, let's keep working together far apart. I love that. It is a fabulous time to co-create many, many different things. Thanks for that, Donna. We certainly, we certainly have the ability to just create things differently and be like responsible for like supporting, being out there and having conversations about what's happening. And I just saw Marianne put something about drinking from a hose, except in Canada because your tongue might get stuck. But yeah, well, drink from the hose and don't stick your tongue on the hose, you funny bugger. So we want to do this. We want to keep these going. The other thing we're going to be doing is 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time every day starting tomorrow. We're going to do a 5-minute fit and fun mental health segment. So I don't know if some of you have seen my silliness on Instagram where I'm lip syncing or exercising by running around my kitchen bench, but we're going to do something similar about fit and fun around mental health every single day for 5 minutes. Just going to do a quickie. We're going to do these calls again once a week. I would love you to be on them. We're going to be doing our peer support for peer supporters Zoom meetings. We'd love you to connect there. And we're also this week, probably in a few days, we're going to start putting up some discussions of different topics, like some discussions for families dealing with, their kids who are maybe like stressing a little. And there's Charlotte and Kirsten, one of the people that work with us, are going to do some stuff around that. We're going to put some stuff for employers on there about workplace peer support, and also supporting their workers who maybe they've had to put off and they're hoping to bring back on when things change. So I know we've got 5 minutes, 6 minutes left. What I would love to do is I would love to request those people on the call, and remember it's about peer support, so you don't have to, but I would love people just to throw up what they're grateful for today, and it can be anything, and self-care. So self-care for me today is actually, I did some kind of meal planning for the week, because when I get busy, I stop being conscious of what I'm eating, and I don't have any crap in the house now, which is good and bad at the same time, because now I've got sugar withdrawal. But also, I'm grateful for being able to talk to you guys. Even if it's just like this, and I'm hearing my voice and just seeing your messages. So I would love it if you would be prepared to throw what you're grateful for or what you're doing for self-care up in the chat. So Christina, live stream service for your place of worship, that's fabulous. Ben, ability to spend time with his kids and family, and even if his aunt from the other side of the world, buddy. Thanks for being on it. Marianne, son and grandkids and hubby. Robyn, friends, or your pup distraction. Like my dog Rue, I think she'll be on the call next week. Laurie, grateful for your girlfriend. That's awesome. Joni, self-care was exercise, and I'm thankful for a positive husband. Donna, this time increased community. Thanks, really appreciate that. And I can get back into my garden and grow food. Well, totally. Thanks, Heather. Really, it is those things. It's about getting back to the simplicity of life and remembering that as peer workers, people who've done peer support, being trained, and getting some of those skills, remember those people in your community who have never been anxious before, and think about the first time you were, and remember that when you're out there, and you can have those kind of discussions from a human perspective. Thanks, Mary. Grateful for Robyn. I'm hoping that's me. I'm not sure, but hopefully. And I'm glad this is self-care for you guys. I look forward to kind of thinking about how we move forward with this. So Brendan's talking about art supplies and dog, and going to figure out peer support for peer support specialists. That's awesome. Yell out if you want to have a chat, Brendan, because chatting's free. And Joni, I just saw you say, wow, that was an eye-opener. It is the place, right? I think this is a leveler, because for the first time, the entire world is getting to experience what some of us experience every day. Like some of those feelings. And I think we have the ability to share from that experience. And the other place is, I'm hoping that as we work through this, the whole community actually gets a better understanding of what we go through, and therefore is not as stigmatizing and discriminating at the other end of this. So stay well. Feel free to jump on Instagram and say hi, the Robyn Priest. Feel free to jump on Facebook. And Joni, thanks for sharing that, right? Because we have a world who could do with our support in a different way than maybe it's all happening. So really appreciate you being on the call. Stay well. Please feel free to kind of, reach out in any of those kind of forums. Be on the peer supporter calls, be on those. And I love the fireworks. They're hitting the heart button for sure. So we'll see you next Sunday. Love you all. I'm going to finish up now. But thank you for being on the first one of these. And we'll catch you. Take care.